Hi, everyone. I'm Dr. Jonathan Reichental. I'm really very proud to be here as part of Summit País Digital in Chile. I wish I could be there in person. I hope soon we will have physical events again, but it's wonderful to be with you online, virtually, for this important, very important event as we discuss digitalization and the emergence of new technologies and change in the future, which impacts every one of us. Today, I want to speak about the opportunity for smarter cities, a topic that I'm passionate about. And hopefully I can get you inspired and passionate too, because if you live in a city, this is a pretty important topic. And even if you don't live in a city, cities matter to the world. So let's go ahead and jump in here. Cities have been around for, we think, between 10 and 20,000 years. It seems like a long time, but it's really quite short in the history of humans. About 200,000 years, we think Homo Sapiens have been around. And in the scheme of dinosaurs, which were around for 200 million years, it's really not a long time at all. But here you see a picture of one of the first cities. This is called Catalhoyuk, a city, an original city back in Turkey, actually. We think we may have found an older one, in fact, recently, but we're still doing the research on that. So humans moved from being hunters, gatherers to living in these organized settlements that later became the cities that we know today. And today, half the world's population lives in cities. In fact, it's more than that. And about 3 million people are moving into cities every single week. So we are rapidly urbanizing the world. And the question is, are we ready for that? Are we ready for a future that is almost entirely urban? It's an important question that many of us ask every day, and not only ask, but then also action. What should we do about it? What should we do to make the quality of life better for more and more people in our communities? For example, this is not unusual for traffic here in the United States. This is a picture of, actually, it's from Florida in the US. And this is what a commute looks like, either going to work or coming from work. But it's not an American issue. It's certainly not a Florida issue. As I've traveled around the world, I've noticed and observed, as you do probably every day, how bad traffic is. So whilst we've built these incredible transportation networks, what we see is that they aren't ultimately serving us well, certainly as we progress into the future. And just looking at transportation, what about things like the gas emissions that are given off and the contribution towards our climate change or climate emergency? What about, for example, accidents? We know that about 1.4 million people die in car accidents every year. That's a great tragedy that we don't talk about. So our cities have these types of issues that need to be solved. Our cities have been quite successful, in fact, very successful in providing a good quality of life for billions of people. But in doing that, we have all this exhaust. We have all these challenges with, as you can see in this picture, air quality, because we are a consumer society. We are building things. We are manufacturing, vast volumes of product for our communities to consume. And the World Health Organization says that up to 8 to 10 million people are directly and indirectly impacted their health, in fact, in a chronic way, and often resulting in death as a consequence of air quality. And all of that work is resulting, all of this consumer work, I should say, this consumerism is resulting in the development of a lot of waste. We have to get rid of that waste too. Waste management is a clear challenge of our communities. And even though I've said that our cities are successful in so many ways in bringing people out of poverty and providing services to so many in every part of the world, we have a lot of gaps. We have a lot of gaps in making our societies, our cities inclusive, making them inclusive for people so everyone can prosper, so we can create more equality and more equity. It is not tolerable that the most vulnerable in our society are not getting the benefits. And we see that very magnified in our urban setting. And of course, the big 400-pound gorilla in the room, as we like to say here, unfortunately, is that our climate is changing, both naturally, but also, we believe, through the scientific consensus from our human activities, right? And this is no longer some sort of academic or abstract idea. We see the product of climate change in progress in front of our very own eyes, and we experience it in a very tragic way, from flooding to tornadoes and more frequent natural disasters, more fires. We're seeing fires right now all over the United States, and we're seeing some catastrophic fires in Turkey, for example. The place where we are producing a lot of carbon emissions is in our cities, produced through our factories, through our buildings, through our transportation systems, and more. And so we are creating the conditions for climate change within our cities. It also means that we can resolve the issues, or at least manage them within our urban communities. Now, if you deal with a city, you probably think of something like this, right? This is not an uncommon way of thinking about and actually experiencing city life. Not so much now during the COVID pandemic. If there was a silver lining in this great tragedy of this pandemic, it is that there are more and more remote services and digital services, so we don't have to deal with this. But still, around the world, when we think of interacting with our city governments, we think of this, when in fact what we want to do is this. We want to do this, right? We want to be able to interact with government in a very high quality way. We want it to be digital, efficient. We want it on our terms when we're ready, right? Not that we have to go to a building and then we have to wait for a service and a human has to do the service, when of course this can all be automated. And these digitalization services, digitizing so much of government, is worth an enormous amount. Just some of the predictions from one consulting firm, from Frost & Sullivan, it looks like over the next few years, right now it's worth about $1 trillion, a little bit more than $1 trillion. And through 2025, we're getting into sort of over $2.5 trillion of value. By the way, in innovating in our communities, building more digital services, rolling out more innovation, we think we can create in the region of about $10 trillion of a new economic value through this decade. So it's a win-win all around. In building the better cities, we can create economic opportunities, jobs, new industries, but we can also benefit the planet, and we can benefit the quality of life, and we can get more people included in society. So we can do good and do well. We can do good and do well. It's a great topic. Now, it's all about right now observing and noting these incredible challenges that we have, but we also have to recognize where there are very big success stories, and where we see new technologies and new innovation emerging. Here you see, for example, Times Square in New York City, the great New York City. And on the left side, you see, or at least the image, where there are vehicles, the cabs, and the buses. You can see what Times Square used to look like about 10 years ago. And then they experimented with pedestrianization, of creating place for people and removing the vehicles. And it's been such a great success. It's now permanent. And it shows that we can take sort of dysfunctional, inferior experiences, and we can actually fix them and make them much better experiences. We can give back our cities to people, take the cities away from our vehicles and give cities back to our people. And that includes cleaning the air. Here you see a very known topic of smog from vehicles in the great city of Los Angeles in California. And over the course of just a few short decades, we've cleaned up the air, not completely, but we've made amazing progress. And the air is now much cleaner today through innovation and technology and behavior and regulation and political will. Now, cities, of course, in order to operate and provide all the incredible services they do, they need a lot of energy. And our appetite for energy is not going anywhere. We are getting hungrier and hungrier for more abundant energy. And we know that if we continue to consume carbon-based energy, oil and gas and coal, that this is what is contributing towards the change in the climate, as well as destroying the environment wherever we harvest a lot of that carbon. And so we need to move, and we are moving away from a carbon past to a non-carbon future. And that future actually looks quite promising as long as we make a series of political and leadership choices and behavioral choices in our lives. Here you can see in this image that the projections for the introduction of new gigawatts of energy are quite intriguing. On the left side, again, you see the new introduction of fossil fuel through 2030. We still are implementing 64 gigawatts by 2030 of net new energy from carbon-based sources. But the good news story, if you look on the other side of this image, you see that through the same period, we're introducing 279 gigawatts of clean energy, that made by solar, by the sun, by wind, by hydro and geothermal from heat underneath the ground. And by the way, the big winner there is solar. We are going to be able to see vast adoption as the technology drops in price and becomes easier to implement, and as we reach critical mass in our cities and communities all around the world. We're already seeing that. We see here the city of Freiburg in Germany, how they have transformed from being a carbon-based community to non-carbon. And in this particular example, the homes produce so much power that they're able to sell it back to the grid and actually make money. So instead of getting a bill, like getting a monthly electrical bill, they get a check. That's a nice change, right? Getting a check from the electrical company. So we are going to see this transformation in the energy sector in the years ahead, and it will be driven at its core within an urban community. Now, one of the things we're hearing a lot about, now my guess is you're hearing a lot about it at this event, is the emergence of the Internet of Things, connecting devices to the internet. So people can talk to devices, devices can talk to each other, and devices can talk to people. We already see them in our homes in terms of doorbells and cameras and even music systems. In my house, the washer and dryer for my clothes are Internet of Things devices. They are on the internet. And I get a message on my phone when my clothes are dry and I have to take them out of the dryer. So we see the Internet of Things, these devices in our factories and in our offices and in our airports. And now we're seeing them across the landscape of cities. In fact, I believe that cities might be the ultimate platform for the Internet of Things. And this is going to be a really big growth area. You can see in this image just how quickly the Internet of Things is being adopted in sheer billions of dollars in almost every sector of the economy. And by the way, these are almost small numbers compared to where we're headed over the next 5 and 10 years. Remarkably, we will go from billions, a few billion connected devices through this decade to 65, 75, 85 billion devices connected by the middle towards the end of this decade. Quite a remarkable industry, by the way, if you're interested in getting involved in an emerging lucrative work. Now, what does the Internet thing look like in our urban communities? Well, you can see in these top 10 use cases here that we see the Internet of Things being used to improve public transport and to do things like monitor traffic and water levels and do public safety security activities. I'm happy to see the use of IoT for monitoring the quality of our air, because we know that's such a key component of having a healthy, good quality future. I was deeply involved in this myself when I was the leader of technology in a high-profile city here in the United States. And here you can see, for example, some sensors we put on a public light, where these sensors could detect when parking spaces were free. They could do things like count pedestrian traffic. They could identify different types of vehicles, and they could also detect the direction and speed of vehicles. All this information is really important to managing a community. And now we can do it in a very low cost way, 24 hours a day. Now we see the Internet of Things being implemented in real practical ways in our communities. For example, everything from digital signage to connecting our parking spaces so we can tell if they're available. Our trash cans, our waste can tell us when they are full and need to be emptied. And you can see here how Internet of Things melded with digitalization and data is going to get us and is getting us completely new results in our urban communities. I'm particularly excited in this image with the future of buildings, right? There are millions of buildings around the world in our cities that are not ready for the future. Our buildings are producing too much carbon emissions. Our buildings are not energy efficient, so they don't use energy well. They're too hot when it's hot, and they have to be cooled down. And when it's cold, you have to use too much heating. So we need to do a lot of work to make our buildings smarter. And that's an amazingly lucrative, big opportunity because it is so multidimensional. Now that's retrofitting all our buildings. How about all the new buildings that we're building? Let's make those buildings from day one, ready for the future. And fortunately, we've some really smart people and architects and city planners and others doing that. And I've had the luck to visit Santiago in Chile about 2 years ago, and was very impressed with some of the new construction and some of the work that was being done there. So I know that Chile takes this very seriously, as do so many communities around the world. Now, another aspect, getting back to the transportation question, is, well, what happens to cars, right? I talked about it being a problem. Now we have to see cars as being the solution, and we're going to see the introduction in a broad way of the autonomous vehicle, cars that drive themselves. These are coming, and they're going to happen faster than you think. I won't give you a date. Everybody wants a date, but I will say that they're going to come probably sooner than we think in a very big way. Eventually, humans will likely not drive cars, certainly not on streets, maybe on the weekends, perhaps. Just like we ride horses on the weekend. We don't ride horses in the United States here on our highways, right? We used to, but not anymore. Or at least we used to have our horses in urban settings, and we don't really do that anymore. So autonomous vehicles are coming. They're going to be electric. Some people say, well, is this not some sort of dream? Well, no, it's not a dream, because we already have fully autonomous vehicles in the United States and in many places around the world. One example is use of Waymo. Waymo is a spin-off from Google. It's a completely 100% autonomous vehicle, and it's providing a on-demand driving service in the city of Phoenix in Arizona today. It's doing it today. So we don't need to have a debate anymore about whether this is possible or whether it's coming, because it's already here, and people are enjoying this experience of a car pulling up with no driver. You get in the car and it brings you safely to your destination. We'll see all sorts of innovation come to our communities in the years ahead, including robots, very much powered by artificial intelligence. Here you see, for example, one example of a robot that is providing a security service. So a human being doesn't have to do this, where they could be doing higher value work. Our skies and our streets will soon have more and more drones. Drones are coming. Here you see a lovely example of, for how we can move medical products around a community with speed. In this particular example, this is how blood samples can be collected perhaps at a clinic and then sent to a hospital, or from a crash site to a hospital. That's just one of many use cases of seeing drones. Already we see drones on the ground. These terrestrial drones deliver food, for example, and we see this in excuse me, many communities here in the US, and soon in many communities around the world. This is not something that is going to happen. This is something that is happening, and we have to think big. We have to think big. For too long, we've had small ideas, but we have big problems, and big problems demand big ideas. And in a conference about our digital future, about a different innovative future, it's important for us to open our minds and get exposed to new ideas and to be bold enough to pursue those ideas. We will see incredible innovation in front of our eyes. And often a lot of innovation will be implemented in the back office too. So we need smart people. We need people enthusiastic. We need leaders. We need people with all sorts of skills across the gamut, from project management to technical skills. We need storytellers and people who can visualize things and people who love data and so much more. And I'm left with a question for each of you as you've listened to my very short talk today is, if you were in some way inspired, if you believe in a better future, if you believe that we can do better than we do today, I ask you this question: what can you do? What can you do to create smarter and more sustainable communities? I hope that you have a good answer to that question. Now, before I leave you, I only had a few minutes to speak with you today. I'm so completely privileged and honored to be with you just for this short amount of time. But if you are excited by this topic and you like perhaps to hear more from me, the good news is I've written 2 books about this that you can buy today and learn in detail about this incredible, rich space. You might want to know about it for your career, for your family, for your children, for your friends, maybe for the business you're already in. So go to smartcitybook.com and you can buy my Dummies book, which is 400 pages of actual things you can do and benefits you can start implementing immediately. And we don't want to leave out the children. Children are enthusiastic about this, and our children are our future. We want our children enthusiastic and be the next leaders for our communities. And I've written a kids book called Exploring Smart Cities Activity Book for Kids. Lots of games and puzzles and activities. You can go there through smartcitybook.com/kids, and you can buy it there in Chile. We hope soon we'll have a Spanish edition of this, but in the meantime, the English edition has plenty of pictures and activities, and I encourage you to get those 2 books. As I wrap up here, again, thank you so much to Summit Pi Digital in Chile 2021. I thank you again for your attention. This is the beginning of the conversation, not the end of the conversation. Please do reach out to me. I'm very active on Twitter. You can find me on LinkedIn. Please find me there. And you can go to my own personal site too, which is Reichental.com. Just my last name, Reichental, as it is on the screen there, .com. And so with that, I hope you all will remain safe and healthy during this difficult time. Better times are coming. And thank you very, very much.